6 weeks of college football are in the books, and the biggest money makers for the 2025 NFL Draft, wide receiver for Ole Miss, Trey Harris, is climbing up the ranks and making a case that he should be wide receiver 3 or 4. We're going to discuss this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And you know I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at TheTalentCode. Can you talk to him, baby?
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, where we bring you championship level content each and every single day, man. Listen, I want to start this podcast off by saying what? Shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listen is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft DP. Today's show, man, we're going biggest money makers, right? Since the start of the 2024 season, which draft prospects have been the biggest risers, right? Then we're going to talk about, which guys are not off to a great start, and they might need to think about returning back to school, whether that's the transfer portal, right? Or just simply returning back to where they're at right now. And then we're going to wrap this thing up with Coach K's Key Thought DP. And I think I got a feeling I'm going to shake a couple tables and rattle a couple rooms, man, with my Key Thought. But DP, I'm ready to have this conversation. Let's get into it.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Biggest money makers for the 2025 NFL draft class, Keith. And when I think about this, I was like, of course, got to take out the main variables, right? The easy, low-hanging fruit. Ashton Genty, right? Cam Ward, like those type of guys.
How you didn't know I was going to go with that, man? Why you took out my low-hanging fruit, man? Why you took out my low-hanging fruit?
I was like, we've talked about them a lot on this podcast, so I was like, I'm going to take them out. At least for me, I'm going to take them out. And I thought about a guy, Keith. And when we talk about this wide receiver room, the wide receiver class, and it's like, well, wide receiver 2 is really dependent on what happens with Travis Hunter. Does he declare as a receiver? Does he declare as a corner? And if he does, then it's Travis Hunter at 2, and then you have Luther Burden at 3. Well, what if Hunter stays at corner? Luther Burden's probably 2. Who's 3? And right now, for me, I think this guy's playing better, as good as anyone right now. And that's Trey Harris from Ole Miss, 52 receptions on the season, 885 receiving yards, 5 total touchdowns. The big body receiver, Keith, 6'3", 210. And I think he's kind of built also his game. His game is kind of in that mold similar to a Drake London, a Cortland Sutton, like those bigger body receivers. Now, I do think that like Cortland Sutton, I believe Cortland Sutton went to SMU, but Cortland Sutton coming out of college, I think was a better vertical athlete. Same thing with Drake London a little bit than Trey Harris, but just being a big body receiver that can win at the catch point, win the horizontal plane and those in-breaking routes, the slants, the dig routes, but be physical after the catch, a guy that can get you yards after the catch, but also gives you that inside-outside versatility, can play as like a power slot, especially you're talking about getting them matched up in the red zone, right? You inside the 20, you inside the 10, and you in 11 personnel. I'm looking to put Trey Harris in the slot against a 5'10", 5'9" nickel and throwing that slot fade with the outside receiver running the slant to kind of clear some stuff out and give him that jump ball situation and let him just be a big body receiver. I think he's got a clear path right now to being that potential wide receiver 3-4 as we wait for other guys to really take a step up now that we're in conference play.
Yeah, DP, I think the biggest thing for Trey Harris, once I watched him, right, was like, can he repeat this performance? And you kind of hit on the athletic ability part to where it was kind of a question mark, right? Like, okay, how athletic is he? But you kind of just get to the threshold of like, I guess he's effective, right? Like he knows what he's doing. Because once another year, right, and he's probably going to eclipse his numbers from last year, by a marginal amount, right? And we're about to get deep into SEC play, so we'll see how that goes. But Trey Harris is definitely a guy, like you said, just made himself some money by having a repeat performance from last year. DP, I'm gonna go with, and this might be more low hanging fruit, or you're gonna say, of course, you went with this guy. I'm going with LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier. And to go from a who knows, right? Like as far as how he's going to play, because I think he had one start last year against Wisconsin, and then a year before he played like marginal snaps against Georgia. So relatively no snaps, right, as a starter. And then to go here, we're walking into a top 15 matchup, him versus Ole Miss, right? Both our guys are going to be playing each other this week. And to be able to potentially supplant yourself as maybe QB 4, 5, right, in this quarterback class, that it's a who knows in the best way though, that because if you put yourself somewhere in there, hey, you may go to back end of the first round, you may go to middle of the second round, right? And then the storyline, and we know what gets said, right? NFL coach's son, right? His father is coached in the NFL. This guy has some gamer to him. He can sling the rock. He can make, what appears to be all the throws necessary, right, on a football field. So Garrett Nussmeier was a guy, DP, that when I looked at it, I'm like, he actually elevated himself, because there were guys like Connor Wegman, right, who was, hey, this, he may be the best quarterback in the class. And there were other quarterbacks that people were talking about, but not a lot of people talking about Garrett Nussmeier. And I'm not blaming him, right? Rightfully so. He just didn't have a resume. He didn't have a draft resume to put together. But now what he's doing right now is looking pretty doggone good.
No, 100%, right? I think he played, if I remember correctly, he played well against Wisconsin in that bowl game. Yep. You know what I mean? And the question coming off of this summer, people are like, well, can you turn that into a full season? And he's done that. He's balled, and especially as a guy that, up until like the last couple of weeks where they finally figured out a running formula and the right backs in the backfield, stuff like that. For the first couple of weeks, I feel like they couldn't run the ball. So it was a lot of Garrett Nussmeier having to throw the ball and carry that offense. And he did so willingly, you know what I mean? And he did it well. So, 100%. I think, because it's crazy, Keith, because I feel like he's one of those guys that would fit in a different context. The second topic that we have about, prospects better off returning, I feel like some people will say, hey, go back for next year. But I mean, if he keeps playing well, you knock off Ole Miss, right? You continue to play good ball. Why not strike while the iron is hot, right? We've seen Keith, we've seen it. Guys play well one year. Your name is buzzing and you're draft eligible. They recruit you back. You know what I mean? You go back and it's like, yeah, I didn't play the same way. I didn't play at the same level as I did the year before. And now instead of being a high second round pick, I'm a mid to late third round pick, or I'm a fourth round pick. No, man, strike while the iron is hot and go ahead and get not just get your money, but go ahead and get out there and play, because you probably get to play as a rookie. But another guy, Keith, I think that has made himself some money defensively that no one talked about coming into the season, Jalen Catalon, the safety over at UNLV, man. And a guy that has been known his entire time, 5'11", 205. Keith, when he was at Texas, at Arkansas, we all know him as Bob Sanders Jr., that like reckless, heavy hitting, I'm probably going to knock you and myself out of this game type of player. And to watch him evolve more so into that deep field safety, too high shell, making plays in the back end, taking the ball away, only allowed one touchdown in coverage, 4 interceptions on the season, multiple pass breakups. Just to watch his evolution this year, man, it's been great. And the crazy thing, keep thinking about the safety class, is not a lot of talk about the safety class outside of like Malachi Starks right now. And I think he's made himself some money to where when you're saying who's safety 2, 3, and 4, that Jalen Catalon needs to be mentioned in those discussions.
Yeah, and obviously it's been a guy that we've been aware of, right, for a few years, and just having him play well and find a home. I think he started at Arkansas, transferred to Texas, right, and then I think now he's at UNLV, and I think this might be his last year in the 6th year. So definitely happy to see him healthy, right, because he was a good football player when he was healthy. So definitely happy to see him. But DP, let's flip this on the other side, right? We talk about the money makers, but let's talk about the prospects that need a seriously concerned returning for the 2025 college football season.
Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Guys, you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Prospects better off to return in 2025 for college football for the 2026 NFL draft. Keith, I got to go to Georgia, and I got to go to tight end Oscar Delp. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think I'm going to take it one step further. It's not just returning. I think Oscar should consider transferring. And the reason why is unless Mike, and I've said this on this podcast, unless Mike Bobo is not the offensive coordinator next year, I'm out. If I'm in his camp, I'm telling go somewhere else where the passing game is going to be tailored, not just tailored to you, but it's a more spread out, open passing attack. You keep no one nor their mama would have came into this season and said Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green would be a better 2025 tight end prospect than Oscar Delp. No one would have said that, no matter how much they liked Harold Fannin. Because there were some people that like that, pay attention to a lot of the small school guys. And that's how, this summer he got on my radar because I saw some things he did. And I was like, all right, let's see, how it looks this year, especially with the big games, he had early in the season, Penn State, Texas A&M and everything. But no one would have said, yeah, let me get the Bowling Green tight end over the Georgia tight end who's 6'4", 245, who looks like he's an NFL grown man ready to step in and play day one with his hand in the dirt. No one would have said that, right? It would have been Oscar Delp and probably Colston Loveland as tight end 1 and 2 for a lot of people. This offense, they're not funneling the passing game through. We watched them do it for years to Brock Bowers. And yes, I get Brock Bowers is a different. He's a smaller guy because I've seen him two side by side. He's smaller than him, but he's twitchy. He's more explosive in the short area and things of that nature. And I get it, right? But body type, catch radius, different things like that, working the seam, vertical speed, all that stuff is there with Oscar. I just don't understand what's going on at Georgia and not being able to get him the football consistently. I think if there's anybody that would benefit so much from returning for the 2025 college football season, tight end Oscar Delp, man. He probably be my number one prospect to tell him come back and not just come back to college. Look at your options, brother. Look at what else is out there. Just look at what else is out there.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a tough situation, and you could probably make that case for almost every skilled player at Georgia, right? Kobe Young, I believe, Dylan Bell, even Ben Yorsek, right? The guy who I think he's a 6-year tight end, and he transferred from Stanford, right? Which I think he transferred to get a better opportunity to get the ball. And of those two tight ends, they're giving it to the third tight end. And I can't remember his name, the younger guy, and it's like, okay, what are we doing right now? Right? Like what is going on? Because the weapons are definitely there. So I'm with you on that. It'll be interesting to see if, and I don't know if Georgia's going to get it right, because we just talked about this, is that, hey, they had one loss, but can they have another one, right? Like, and hopefully, yeah, like, is this a reality check? And are they checking themselves? Are they comfortable with wins, right? Or are they saying we need to get better? Because if they're comfortable with wins, then I think they're going to run into another issue, right? Like there's going to be another barrier. And then now you're like, shoot, I hope we make the playoffs, right? At the end of the day, because 2 losses, potentially 3 is going to be definitely tough to make it into the playoffs. But DP, my guy, I'm going to go with, and this is somewhat optimistic, right? But and also planning for next year, I probably go Cade Klubnik, DP. And the reason I say this is that this quarterback class, right? Because you believe that Quinn is going to come out, you believe that Jalen Miller is going to come out, you believe that Shador Sanders and Cam Ward, right? That's already 4. I would say Cade Klubnik because I think you have the opportunity to enter next year's season as QB1, right? And as sometimes with this draft stuff, right? It's about where you start. And starting at QB1 is a much better situation, right? Because your fall has to be a lot steeper fall versus starting at the bottom when nobody liked you. And plus, he already has the game against Georgia on his resume to what people may turn into, right? Like if you finish this season strong and then play well all of next year, you get to be able to put a lot of distance in between your freshman year, the game this past season against Georgia, right? You put a lot of distance to say, hey, Cade is grown. Cade is and allow people to create their own storylines and own narratives that are in a positive way about you. So he would be somebody that I would definitely look at for returning. And it's weird. I talked about Garrett Nussmeier, DP, but I think he could fit in this category too, right? For the same reasons with Cade Klubnik. Like that could be QB 1 and 2 right there for the next draft.
And I think, and like you said, he's setting that momentum is such a real thing coming off of one season going to the next. And if you play this way, right, the last 4 to 5 games after the Georgia game, if you keep this going, you're going more than likely you end up running the Cam Ward in the ACC championship game. That's going probably, I would say this, that's probably going to be one of the most watched ACC championship games that we've seen in recent years. And if you can play well in that and you get to the playoff, even if you don't win, like I'm not, yes, you want to win, but even if you don't win, but you play well, you just put that rocket on your back to when people get to summer scouting for the 2025 college football season and 2026 NFL draft, they're looking at you. And then you already have, because you know what the conversation is going to be for the 2026 quarterback class, Nico Iamaleava and Arch Manning. Now, for me, I think Nico has a lot of work to do. Where Arch has looked in the 2 starts or whatever he had, while he's looked good. Nico has made some very young mistakes, turnovers, stuff like that, to where as much as you want to buy in and say, yes, he's going to be QB2 and stuff like that, yeah, I think outside of Arch, that quarterback class is going to be wide open. You got Taylon Green over at Arkansas, who actually had a great game this past Saturday before getting knocked out in that upset victory against Tennessee. So yeah, I think if you're Cade Klubnik and if you're Dabo, that's what you sell to Cade. Hey, come back, get that extra year under your belt. Because I think for him, as he's playing well right now, you see him being confident. But I also think that if you give him another year, the game slows down just a little bit more for him. And that natural just athleticism that he has, those fast twitch fibers in his body, he can just play the game. And you don't see the young player deer in the headlights staring down reads. You see him trying to look guys off. He's being more of a veteran. Also helps his leadership on that team, who would then for sure have championship aspirations with that defense that they have. The 2 freshman receivers, TJ Moore, Bryant Wesco, those 2 young playmakers that he's actually getting the ball to, and they're bringing that speed element for him. Yeah, I think if you're Cade, you come back not just to help your draft stock, but also to chase a championship ring, because that Clemson team, with him playing great, their championship contender.
Yeah, no, you build all of that momentum up, DP. And I look at it like this for Cade Klubnik, and this is for a lot of players, right? Don't just stumble into the NFL, right? Like master this part first, master college, and then you can go on to the next level to be like, okay, cool. Because I would hate for you just to get a C-, right, from college and then think that you about to go take the hardest test of your life and pass that with an A, right? Like you won't do that. I promise. I've done it.
If you getting the C on your math exam, don't think you about to ace the SAT. All right, like it's just not about to happen, man.
Yeah, I've done it with math, man, and that didn't turn out well for me at all. I promise. You gonna have to repeat those classes. Trust me, I'm speaking from experience. But DP, let's keep this thing.
I got one more that has to.
Let's talk about it.
One more that has to. I don't even think it's a question. He got to go back, and that's Nick Anderson, the wide receiver from Oklahoma.
Yeah,
and it's not because of his play, the injuries. Like he's been hurt pretty much the entire season.
I almost want, and I don't know how much draft eligibility Deion Burks has. I has to look back into that. But you know what else has been DP? Has been the quarterback situation, right? Like they're influx with quarterbacks. Don't know what they're going to do as far as coming out. I mean, like starting Jackson Arnold or going to the young guy. I think he's a freshman. He's just another situation. And even DP, another guy that, and we'll see how it finishes, but even Evan Stewart from Oregon, right? Because does he definitely need to be the wide receiver one, which he's not right now because Tez is there. So that's another, like those three wide
receivers. He has another year. Burks is a redshirt junior. He's got another year.
Yeah, so I think
both those OU receivers might need to return. All three of them, Evan Stewart as well. Yep. All three of those guys might need to return, man.
Yep, I agree. All three of those we could throw in that category. I'm glad you stopped me up right there. But DP, coming up next, man, we have a Coach K's key thought. And like I said, man, I might shake some rooms up a little bit. So stay tuned. We're gonna talk about that coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch or an urge in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you place your bets. Talk about placing bets. FanDuel Sportsbook has the active live season awards betting odds uploaded and updated right now. MVP, offensive rookie, defensive player of the year, and offensive player of the year as well. Guys, you can get in on all of that action right now. For MVP, listen, if you are a Dirty Birds fan and Kirk Cousins is doing it for you, he is plus 2,200 in the odds right now. You can get in on that action. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Guys, to get in on the action, it's simple. Just go to FanDuel.com. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, FREE free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, the Great American Story, A Land of Hope, the rise and fall of the Roman Republic, and so much more. Guys, one of the courses that I plan on diving into is Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. It's one of my favorite Christmas movies every single year to watch. Always been interesting to me. I would love to listen to the lectures on this. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot, for being our everydayers. Coach K's key thought. What is the key thought of the day, Coach K?
DP, this draft class is going to challenge people's groupthink model and also ability to think on their own, right? And the reason I say that is because looking at this class, it looks like the running back class, the running back is the deepest part of this entire class. Like that is the most talent. And so I think what's going to happen is that the positional value conversation that we love having, right, is that what is the swap out? Do you draft the sixth best edge rusher, or do you draft the running back at high talent? Do you draft the guy with nothing but potential, or do you draft the guy that's a proven commodity? And I think that's what's going to happen in this draft, because if I have to put together, DP, like a top 30, right, when you do your first round of your mock drafts, there are 4-ish to 5-ish running backs that, like, when you're talking about regardless of position, but just pound for pound, who are most productive and good football players, there are running backs littered throughout that, right? And then I think you get to the point of like, hey, are we rocking with the old model or staying with the old model, or are we going to grade these guys for what they are? And so I think that this draft class is going to be very challenging for a lot of people, because the model of running backs don't have any value. And then also what the NFL is starting to say now, right? And that's something that we've always championed, and I definitely always championed, right, was that running backs do matter. They're a big part of the game, right? Like, look at the San Francisco 49ers. What's wrong? They don't have their star running back. So you look at that situation, I think that it's going to bump people against the threshold that I think some people, like a lot of people, going to get to January and they're going to be really confused.
No, 100, Keith. And to double down on what you're saying, Jim Nagy tweeted something out on the 30th of September. He said, spoke to 4 NFL execs this past weekend, all said the same thing about the up-and-coming 2025 draft. There's an unusual small number of surefire first-rounders this year. The amount of round one grades in most drafts is in the mid-teens, and then good drafts tend to have low 20s. Based on these convos, there's less than 10 consensus first rounders right now at this part of the scouting process. And
My
you know
point
what,
exactly.
Keith? I think 2 of those 10 might be running backs with Quinshawn Judkins. It depends on who you look at. Omaria Hampton, Quinshawn Judkins, and of course, Ashton Jeanty. Yes,
that's 3.
This class is going to test that. It's going to test what do you like? What are you going to value? And like I said, Keith, to your point, it's very difficult to look your fans in the face. As a decision maker said, we took the 6th best corner, top 15 or whatever, top 25, where we need, like Dallas Cowboys. We had the conversation, the perfect prospect pairings and perfect pairings on yesterday's pod. You put Ashton Jeanty to the Dallas Cowboys, right? We're watching Dak Prescott carry them to a win late on Sunday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road, right? Give Dak a run game. But I'll tell you right now, Keith, if Jerry Jones gets cute with this thing and takes somebody that's probably 4th or 5th at their position in round 1 and Jeanty is staring him dead in the face, granted, this is a loaded running back class, unless certain guys go back, you're going to have a really pissed off fan base looking at you like, bro, we needed a running back. The best one in the class is right on the board, and you took the 4th best defensive tackle. What are we doing, Jerry Jones? So, Keith, to your point.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, not even just the 4th best defensive tackle, right? But the 4th best defensive tackle in the defensive tackle class that we're not sure of, or the 4th best corner, right? Like I don't know a world right now where I will for sure take Takario Davis over Ashton Jeanty, right? With the 27th pick. Like, I can't make a case for that, DP, because I know what I see on film. I know what deficiencies one player has, and I know what assets another player has.
Even
right?
wide receiver, though, Keith. Like, even like we talked about Trey Harris at the beginning of the show. Like, I know Dallas needs another receiver, but I'm not taking Trey Harris over Ashton Jeanty. As much as good as Trey Harris has played, Jeanty is just that. He's that type of playmaker.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And you could throw Ashton, you could throw Quinshawn whenever Ohio State decides to give him the football. And Omari Hampton, he's probably going to eclipse 1,500 yards, right? And be very productive and on top of what his physical profile is. So, like I said, I just think that this is, we're out now. We're middle October, right? And then we're transitioning to the back end of the season. And sometimes you just have to, it is what it is, right? Like, we can't live in a state of hoping that other players do well, right? At the end of the day. And that's why I think that we're sitting there like, man, I hope he turned it on at some point, right? Or we still can't live in projections, right? Like, that's what the summer is for. It's like, hey, I see this guy, I'm gonna probably add on a little bit of projection to him and then let him see what he does this year. But I mean, we in the season now, right? So unless some of these guys really turn it on, and it was something that you said, DP, that Jim Nagy said in a tweet. I don't know if it was surefire first round grades. That might have been the word or the phrase that you used, but that's how you're supposed to go about this, right? Like, the elite guys are supposed to be the elite guys. Like, you're not supposed to be drafting guys in the top 10 that you have question marks about. That's not how that goes. Or we can swing for the fences and say, oh yeah, we're gonna bet on nothing but traits. Okay, cool. And then when that flops, and then you have a first round bust, and then now your fan base is mad with you. Then what, right? Like that's how you get bad drafts, when you consistently bet on nothing but potential, or the player never showed you that he can do it on film, and then you just went with it and said, you know what, because I drafted him, he gonna be good. Okay, go with that one.
No, I'm with you, bro. It's I think one of the biggest parts you made is it is going to test groupthink. I love drafts when there's no consensus QB1. I love it. Because I love to see how people evaluate. I love to have those conversations on Twitter, on Instagram, in the YouTube comments, wherever I am. I like to hear people's thoughts. Like, okay, how do you feel about the top? Who's your top quarterback? Or is Shedeur Sanders? All right, tell me why you got Shedeur. Or is Carson Beck? Tell me why you got Carson Beck. Rather than, oh, it's Trevor Lawrence. And everybody says the exact same thing. And it's not because people are watching tape. It's because groupthink. Oh, well, my favorite analyst says it's Trevor Lawrence. He's generational. I got to go with it, right? Last year was Caleb Williams over the entire field, and we're seeing what Jaden Daniels has done the moment he stepped in Washington and taken the field as a rookie, right?
Yep.
And most people, even us included, would say that we thought Chicago was the best landing spot in terms of weapons, everything else.
I had concerns about the Commanders.
Me too. So it was just like, then they trade Jahan Dotson, and you're like, wait a minute now. I'm like, who's going to be wide receiver 2? Like, what are we doing? And Jaden Daniels has been cooking. So yes, like I love these type of drafts, Keith, because now we get to see who's putting in work, who's watching film, and how people really feel about these prospects. It's fun to me.
Oh no, it is. This makes it exciting, right? Like this was like, come on, we got to lock in, we got to rock and roll. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Listen, man, I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson, and you can find him on X at DP_NFL. Like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And Keith, I just started something. We just talked about QB1 and the QB1 discussion. I think that we should go ahead and have a discussion tomorrow. Make the case for your QB1 so far through the first 6 weeks of the college football season. I think we should open the show up with that tomorrow. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.